Hey guys, welcome back to Ashsharp Books. Today I'm going to be doing a book review for A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. You may have seen this, I talked about it a little bit in my recent wrap-up, but I kind of had more to say, and so I figured I might film a review of the book. So I'm going to do my very best to keep this spoiler-free, but having said that, there may be certain things that are slight spoilers, so if you really don't want to know anything about this book and go in blind, maybe skip this video and come back once you've read it. But having said that, I really loved this book and I am excited to talk about it. So this book is the first book in a trilogy called the All Souls Trilogy, and it follows really two main characters, but the main female character, her name is Diana Bishop, and she is a scholar studying at Oxford. So she's a little bit older, and I really liked that. This is definitely an adult, I guess you could say an adult paranormal. It's got a little bit of everything in it. It's got paranormal, it's got historical aspects of it, it does have a romance in it. It's kind of like that perfect mashup, and I think that's why I like it. So anyways, back to the characters. So Diana is studying at Oxford, and she studies alchemy, I believe it is. So it's kind of the study of science in history. And I really liked Diana as a character. I thought she was so different and so unique. So Diana, aside from being a scholar, is also a witch, and she comes from a really long line of bishop witches that date all the way back to before the witch trials, and one of her ancestors was killed in the witch trials. So Diana knows she's a witch. She's grown up knowing this. Her parents were witches, but she does not want to use her powers. She is all for, you know, academics and studying and finding out like the root behind things and not using her powers at all, really. Part of that is because she believes that the magic that her parents had was part of the reason that they were killed when she was younger. That's not really a spoiler. You find that out pretty early on in the book, that her parents were killed when she was pretty young. I think she was 7, and since then she's just really had no interest in learning. She does live with her aunt, and or she grew up with her aunt. She doesn't live there anymore, and she just kind of doesn't care. She thinks that's not her future, and she wants nothing to do with it at all. The other main character in this book is named Matthew Clairmont, and he is a vampire, and he's a super old vampire. I think he's supposed to be like 1,000 years old or something. He was very old, and I love the history aspect of this book. A lot of that was brought in from Matthew's past, and kind of seeing places he'd been, and like history and memories that he had, and kind of parts like that. So I loved that aspect of it. So the plot of this book basically follows Diana, and she's studying, like I said, at Oxford. So she's in the library, and she comes across this book. I believe it's called the Ashmole 782. It's this journal and this whole set of books. But this one particular book had been missing since I think it was the 1500s, and no one had seen this book. Diana just happens to ask for this book, you know, to be brought up to her because she wants to use it for her research, and the book suddenly appears, and she's able to touch it, and she sees that there's just something funky about this book. It's like emitting some kind of like power, and she doesn't want anything to do with it because she knows that it's some kind of magic, and she wants to stay far away from that. So the story kind of goes from there, and it turns out this book is a magical kind of relic. So in this book there are different kinds of creatures. So there's witches like Diana, vampires like Matthew, and daemons, which I think I'm saying that right. Is it demons or daemons? Anyways, those are the 3 kinds of like creatures that are in this magical world, and they've been looking apparently for this book, this missing book, for like hundreds of years, because they think it has something to do with like their origins and how they were created, because you know, it's all different. Witches are born, but like vampires are created. So it's all different, and they want to know their past and what do they come from. So the story kind of goes from there. Diana finds this book, and then she meets Matthew, and she doesn't really know what he wants. Like, he just comes up to her, and it seems a little suspicious. She thinks that he is like everyone else trying to find this book, because it turns out that all of a sudden the library at Oxford is like completely taken over by all of these creatures looking for this book and trying to basically coerce her into telling them where it is. But the book has disappeared again. So Diana doesn't know where the book went. So it kind of goes from there. So that's the basic plot. That's where it starts off. And the whole kind of mystery is finding out what this book is, what do people want with it, what's going on, and it kind of looks at why is it important now, it looks back in history, why was it important then, and that was just really interesting to see. I really enjoyed that. So I'd say that is the main plot of the book. Having said that, this book, because it is a chunker, I mean, I think it's like, it's over 500 pages. So this book, it really does take you on a ride from the beginning till the end. I do want to say it is a little slow in parts. It definitely took me a little while to get attached to the plot and the characters. I'd say if you're giving this book a chance, try and get through like 150 pages, which I know is a lot, but I feel like once you get past that point, all the setup is done and all the real action is really starting, and the relationships are building, and that's when it got good. By the halfway point, I was like sucked in and I couldn't stop reading it. So definitely give it a chance. It was a little bit wordy at times for me. I think it could have been a little shorter, but I do know like Deborah Harkness, I believe, is a professor herself, and it's a history professor, so she has the best details about history and relics and all of this like magical things that, I mean, it builds into the story, but I do think it could have been a little bit shorter and it still would have been just as good of a book. Next part I wanted to talk about was the romance. So I guess this is a bit of a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear any spoilers, stop now. But obviously Diana, the witch, and Matthew, the vampire, do kind of form a friendship first. It's definitely a friendship first, and then it kind of forms into this like forbidden love. There is a kind of ordinance that says, you know, no magical creatures from different like races should be together. So vampires and witches are not supposed to fall in love at all. So obviously they kind of do fall in love, and the story kind of goes from there. I really loved their relationship. It was the like quintessential slow burn. I was reading this book with a friend, and I think she texted me at one point and was like, are they ever going to get together? Because you know they're gonna get together by a certain point, but like, man, it was dragged out. I mean, once they're together, it was like worth it because I really enjoyed the way that they kind of built the relationship first, but whew, you really have to put the time in to get to their relationship. But I really, really adored it. I loved Matthew. I thought he was a little, the same friend I was reading with told me that she's like, does this remind you of Twilight? And at first I was like, no. But then I thought about it, and the way that Matthew was very like protective of Diana, was very like kind of alpha, like I'm gonna protect you from everything, including like anything you touch, was very kind of like Edward. But that was where it kind of ended, and as the story develops and their relationship develops, you see less and less of that. So don't be scared off if you heard that it's like Twilight. I didn't think it was that much so that it was like gonna affect anything. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was the set or the settings that take place in this book. I thought that was one of my favorite parts, the descriptions of where the locations were for this book. I loved that part of it. First part of the book set at Oxford. I have been able to visit Oxford, and so it was even cooler because I could imagine exactly what they were talking about. But even if you haven't visited Oxford or England at all, I think you can really take away a really vivid description and you feel like you're in that library with Diana. They go to different places. So they go to Matthew's house, which is in France, and you get to meet all these lively characters there that are from his past or his family. I really enjoyed that. You really got a feeling for the history of the place. It's something Matthew had created hundreds of years ago, and this house is still there. And I'm a huge history nerd, and so this really spoke to my soul, and I really enjoyed the history aspect of it. I think from the way this book ended on pretty much a big cliffhanger, we're definitely gonna get more history in book 2, and I'm so excited for that. Also, side note, if you hear my cat meowing, I'm really sorry, but she really just wants to, anytime I'm sitting here talking to a camera, she just feels the need to talk to you as well. So, sorry. In conclusion, I highly recommend this. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I had seen this book around for so long and kind of just, meh, it's okay, I don't need to read it. But for some reason I just had this urge to pick it up, partly because I did see it was going to be a TV show. I'm not gonna lie, it is going to be a TV show, I believe on the BBC. I haven't announced where it's going to be on like American networks or Canadian networks yet. But I'm so excited. If you want like a fall, kind of paranormal, kind of creepy, but not like scary book, definitely pick this up. It is a bit of a commitment, but I think it's worth it, and I think it's just a fun read. It has everything, like I said. It has history, it has paranormal, it has action, it has really, really sweet romance, and it has kind of that thriller aspect because they are looking for different pieces to put together of this kind of mystery. So that's all I have about The Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. Let me know if you guys have read this book, because I feel like I need more people to talk about this book with, because I feel like not that many people I know have read it, and more people should. So definitely let me know down below if you've read it or if you're interested in reading it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!